Thank you. Uh, I appreciate that. I hope with the last energetic push that everybody's in an extraordinary space. And this is just a quick little introduction to past life regression. And I suppose, Shantana, we could have a 10-hour conversation and still maybe have more questions than answers. So what I thought I would do is just do a brief little introduction to the whys and the whatnots, the science of it, and when doing a discussion of time and space and consciousness and spirit and soul, again, probably by the time we're done at the top of the hour, might be a few more questions than got answered, but it's an interesting conversation, and I am a hypnotherapist. I spend a lot of my time doing more clinical hypnotherapy in terms of helping people deal with the trauma or the hurt or the pain or just in need of building confidence in their life. Whether, that's, needing to give the big presentation at work or starting that business or giving the speech at the big conference or something else. Whatever somebody may be blocking themselves, that was a big thing we just went through. If there may be blocks to certain types of abundance in your life, is there maybe a subconscious reasoning behind that of trying to keep you safe? Well, what's fascinating and powerful about using therapeutic hypnosis is that you can get in touch with your subconscious mind and create the resolution and the healing. Because just as somebody, let's just say, for a quick example, and I've worked with people in their 70s and their 80s who have deep, extraordinary hurt from childhood trauma they went through, abuse that they went through, and they've been holding on to that as a form of protection, as a way to armor themselves. And as running a car with no oil in the engine, you start to wear down the system, wear down the nervous system, and by the time we're getting into our older states of being a wise elder, maybe those engine parts are starting to wear down and the nervous system gets exhausted. And it's a great time to finally get that tap on the shoulder and say, now is the time for healing. And whether you're 16 years old or 86 years old, now is the best time to heal. And what's fascinating is the power of the mind, of that subconscious mind, that part of mind behind the veil that's running the immune system and healing the cut on a finger and the scrape on a knee and all those things it's doing to hold on to hurt and pain as a way to try to protect. But you're allowed to let it go. But what's fascinating about the work of hypnotherapy as you move into more deeper end of the swimming pool, if you will, is that you can use these techniques and these tools to access those higher realms, your higher self, and tap into that part of spirit. And again, create memories, not create, but access memories as you create this relaxed state of mind and body, just as you can create healing from something that may have happened uh, 70 years ago. What if we went a little bit further? And what if something's impacting your life that maybe is from a past life? Now, a lot of the work I do in terms of past life regression, and I don't think I even introduced myself. So, hello, everyone. I'm Craig Meriwether. Just started jumping into the pool. I get excited about this, and I love talking about past life regression and the more spiritual realms in terms of consciousness and time and space and using hypnotherapy in that way. So I'm Craig Meriwether. I run Sacred Mystery Hypnotherapy, and there you can find out more about this stuff. And if anybody wants a conversation about this afterwards, in the days and weeks ahead, I'm happy to talk over Zoom or a phone call. And I do a lot of this work over Zoom, as many of the people you've experienced this weekend. What's so fascinating is people feel calm and comfortable in their own homes, and then they don't have to drive across town. So what's fascinating about this work of past life regression is that you have the ability to do this. Now, it can be healing and very helpful to work with somebody who is kind of accessing those realms, but we also have the power to do this. I'm going to have some little prompts here in a minute to show you some aspects of the brain as to why we can do this. Now, a lot of the work I do in terms of past life regression is based on the work of Michael Newton. And Michael Newton passed away in 2011, but the Michael Newton Institute is still around, and you may be familiar with his books, Journey of Souls and Destiny of Souls. Since then, there have been many others. In fact, I think the Michael Newton Institute just dropped Wisdom of Souls a couple of years ago. So they're still doing the work. But the basic kind of biography of Michael Newton is that back in 1969, as a psychotherapist, he was working with somebody who was experiencing some hurt and some pain and thinking that maybe getting back to early childhood using regression methods of hypnotherapy would be helpful for him to help release and let go, resolve the issue. So they're doing this hypnotherapeutic process, regressing back to childhood to resolve these issues. And again, this isn't time travel. He's not going back to childhood, just as if I was to ask you about a memory of high school. Who were you hanging out with? Were you into sports? Were you an athlete? Did you do music or theater? Were you smoking cigarettes with the cool kids behind the gym? Uh, that's just a memory, not time travel. You're not Marty McFly, going back to in the film Back to the Future. You're not going back anywhere, getting stuck anywhere. It's just a memory. All we're doing is going a little bit further. And so that's what happened to the patient Dr. Michael Newton was working with, is instead of going to childhood, instead of going back to just being a newborn, he went back to soul state, what eventually Michael Newton described as a life between lives. And he did his deep healing work there. He released and let go of the trauma and the hurt and the pain that he had been holding on to for years, that Michael Newton, as a expert psychotherapist, was unable to help him with. And so he went back to the state of soul, of the memory of it, accessing that connection. And he created the healing he needed. So Michael Newton was fascinated by this, and he's wondered if he could help other people reach this state and help them heal. It was accidental, so he didn't know if you could do this on purpose. And so he started working with people over the course of the early 70s. And he found a protocol, a developed protocol he could use to get people back to this state. And as he's working with people throughout the 70s, he's noticed something extraordinarily fascinating, that people were having similar experiences to each other, even though they didn't know each other. There's no internet, there's no texting, there's no WhatsApp, there's no emails, there's no faxing. Well, maybe there's faxing back then, but they didn't know each other. And yet they are having similar experiences of this soul state, going to the same people, experiencing their soul families, their soul groups. And he started kind of investigating this aspect of their experience for 20 years. So for all the 70s, all the 80s, worked with thousands of people, and that's the Journey of Souls. That's the book that came out in 1992. He then did another decade's worth of work, of research, working with people, and released Destiny of Souls, which is twice as big as Journey of Souls. And that came out in 2002, something like that. And so this is 30 years of research by the time you get to Destiny of Souls, with tens of thousands of people, 365 days a year, over 30 years. Yeah, he worked with a lot of people. And a lot of them, a great majority of them, were having similar experiences to each other. So a lot of this work that I do is based on the research and that came about with Michael Newton, and this aspect that we're here in this life as this classroom of earth to learn, to grow, and to develop as spirits, to develop as souls. And one of the ideas that came out of Michael Newton's research was that we get put in these groups, like when we're, however it works, however we're born or developed or created as souls, we get put into groups or pods of souls, like 8, 9, 10 souls. Sort of like you go to school that first day, and here's your group in first grade or kindergarten, and here's your group, and you're going to go all the way to getting your master's degree together, maybe with the same teacher. But the classroom is planet Earth. And we come back here again and again to learn, to grow, to develop as souls. But also, just like somebody in their 80s may be still being affected by something that happened to them when they're 5, 6, 7 years old, so too may we also be holding on to some issues that may have developed in past lives. And just like school, if you're in college and you don't do well in that chemistry class, you're taking that class over again. You got to go to summer school, you got to get a tutor. And so maybe there's aspects of learning and growing that, well, maybe it didn't go so well that time. So let's try it again. Only this time we'll add this element into it. And just like a theater group in your town, like a local community theater group, all we're doing is playing roles here. Again, coming from the work of Michael Newton and research with tens of thousands, well, now probably hundreds of thousands of people over 60 years with the Michael Newton Institute. We're here to learn and to grow. And because of the experiences we've had, we may be holding on to hurt and pain that needs to be resolved. And maybe that's a good reason as to why we've come back. But we may be doing this experience with others in our soul group. So again, just like the community theater example, there's maybe a community theater group in your town, and every year they do 6 or 7 plays, but they're all different. But it's the same group of actors, and they choose which play they're going to do and how these characters are going to go from the first act to the third act and how they're going to learn and grow and develop as characters. And here's who's going to play what role, and here's the costumes, and here's the time period, and they do the play. Well, then they take a little break, and then a couple months later, they do another play, totally different time period, different costumes. Everybody's playing a different role. They're still the same actors, but they're just playing a different role. So these characters can learn and grow and develop from Act 1 to Act 3 in a totally different way. But they're actors, and they're just playing a role in order to help these characters grow and learn. And it seems similar to what's happening here. And maybe there's people in your life who are in your soul group who are playing roles, and maybe not the nice role in your life this time around. That doesn't mean there's not hurt and pain. There's not need for orders of protection and people going to jail. It just means there may be something larger influencing all this. Doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. Doesn't mean there's not pain involved in life. But there may be a larger component to what you're going through in life. And there may be issues that keep getting piled on because they haven't been released. And that's where the work of past life regression can come in handy in terms of, I'm not a psychic or a mystic or a medium. I don't read for people. I don't have that skill, but I can help facilitate people moving into that state and doing your own work. And that's what's extraordinary about this, is your ability to do it. And even if you've tried hypnosis before and maybe it didn't work so well, that's more of a comfort level for you. Everybody can do this because it's just brainwave state. And the famous ones we learned about in school, beta, alpha, theta, and delta. And right now, a lot of us are in this beta consciousness state, literally firing the neurons in our brain about 18 to 20 cycles per second, because we're in this present moment, we're concentrating, we're doing something. But if you find your mind drifting off and thinking about tomorrow and having to get that report done by the end of the week for school or for work, or you got relatives coming at the end of the month, and you start drifting off or thinking about that trip you took a year ago, you've just slowed down brainwave state. You just slow down how fast your brain is operating. You move down to the alpha brainwave state. Now you're firing about 12 cycles per second. When you get into that sleepy state of not really awake but not really asleep, that's the theta brainwave state. Sleep is delta. And so theta is about 6 cycles per second. Delta is about 1/2 cycle per second. It's that alpha, theta, delta brainwave state. It's called the hypnagogic trance state. Everybody can do it because you do it multiple times a day. That, driving home from work or school or picking up the kids or from the store or whatever, and you're driving home, you start thinking about work and the report that's due or travel plans or something. And all of a sudden you find yourself in your garage or your driveway or your parking spot. It's like, you don't remember the last 5 blocks. Well, that's because you altered your state of consciousness, moved into the alpha brainwave state. Your subconscious mind took over driving because you know how to drive home, like you know how to tie your shoes, you know how to walk down the street and ride a bicycle. You know how to do these things. And so your subconscious mind took over driving home and your conscious awareness drifted off. You altered your state of consciousness. You move into the alpha brainwave state. You do that multiple times a day. So everybody can do this. If you've had the experience of not being able to do it, it's more than likely you're just uncomfortable in the situation with the person you're working with and the circumstances of which that work was being done, or you just weren't ready for the work in that moment. And so your subconscious mind shut it down. Nobody can make you go into hypnosis, just like I can't make anybody meditate. I can't just wave my pocket watch around or my magic wand or wave a pen in front of somebody and tell them, to meditate. They're not going to do it. They don't want to. And just like if somebody doesn't want to or feels uncomfortable going to hypnosis, they won't do it. But watching TV puts you in the hypnagogic trance state. So everybody can do this work. And what's fascinating about the research that's come out in the last, even just 20 years or so, is that this consciousness of ours is not housed within the brain. It's not kind of imprisoned within the skull of ours. And that the more fancy term is consciousness is non-local. Actually, that research started coming out in the 70s it didn't come out, but they started working on the 70s with the remote viewing experiments by the US government. Now, this is where this almost starts sounding like a conspiracy theory podcast, but this is real research that was done in the 70s and 80s. We know about it through the Freedom of Information Act. All this research was released during the early 90s. A lot of people started making fun of it and a government waste with all the money and time spent with this. So a lot of people who associated with the project started writing books. We have ample evidence that this actually happened. And back in the late 60s, the CIA discovered the Soviet Union was researching ESP and psychic ability. They wanted to weaponize psychics because wouldn't it be to their benefit to see into the Pentagon and see into the war room and see what plans were being developed for their, whatever the U.S. wanted to do around the world, see into the Oval Office, see into the CIA building, see into the minds of the people creating these plans, and see troop movements, see into underground bunkers. Well, the CIA was concerned about this because if the Russians thought that was possible, then maybe it is possible, and they wanted to do some research around this as well. Well, nobody took them seriously until they discovered a researcher at Stanford University whose hobby is to debunk psychics. That was his hobby. It's what he liked to do in his free time. And so psychics come to him, and because they were going to be the ones who could prove psychic ability, he would be able, with his knowledge of mind and consciousness, send them away defeated. Until he met one person who was actually able to peer underground into this concrete silo thing they developed into a piece of equipment. And not only was he able to peer underground, of course, he doesn't know what's there, but he's telling the researcher what the equipment is and how it's working. He was also able to manipulate the information coming out of the machine, slow it down, speed it up, stop it. And so this interested the researcher, and he wrote a paper, distributed about 5 or 6 of his colleagues, just kind of under the table secretly. I don't know what this is. I don't know what this means. I'm going to call it remote viewing because really not psychic ability. It's not really ESP. I'm going to call it remote viewing. And the CIA caught wind of it, and they started this big, long project that I'm going to guess is still going on today. And so what they found with this research is not only can you look around the world, they even did an experiment where they looked at Jupiter. Those of us of a certain age will remember the Viking explorer satellites they sent out to look at planets. And in the early 70s, they were going to go by Jupiter. We'd never seen Jupiter this close up. And so they actually had one of the remote viewers remote view Jupiter. And what's it like? What's some aspects of the planet that maybe we didn't know about. And so he starts talking about the rings and other aspects of the planet that seemed like, okay, you missed your mark there because you're looking at Saturn. Jupiter doesn't have rings, and it doesn't look like that, it doesn't look like that. Well, he was embarrassed, and he felt like he kind of failed. And so about 6 months later, when the Viking Discovery satellites went past Jupiter, they found rings around Jupiter. And every aspect of what he said about the planet turned out to be true. Consciousness is non-local. Millions and millions of dollars in decades of research has proven that again and again. And one aspect of this, and again, just for time, I'm not be able to go into it too much. I write about it in my book, Past Lives Guidebook, and there's certainly many other books out there about remote viewing. But you can look forward and backwards in time. Again, just kind of not conspiracy theory. This is government research you can find on the CIA.gov website. And so what's fascinating about this is just in the last 20 years or so, we discovered maybe why this is all possible. And it's not that the brain is the storage house of memory anymore, or not anymore, but in terms of the understanding of the brain doesn't seem to be this warehouse storage center of memory. It seems to be more of an antenna. And many people here will know about the pineal gland. And just here with my little uh, photo of the brain or drawing of the brain, pineal gland is right here. And it's about the size of a grain of rice. And what's fascinating about the pineal gland is one, it's what creates melatonin, the hormone melatonin. That's what puts us asleep. Every night as the sun goes down, more melatonin is created. Cortisol levels go down as the sun comes up. Melatonin ceases and cortisol levels go up and we wake up. At least that's the way it's supposed to happen. Now we have blue light and screens and electric light bulbs and all that. But that's the main job of the pineal gland right here. It's the right-sized piece of the brain, about the size of a pea. But about 20 years ago, it was discovered that there's all these crystals in the brain. Now, somebody of middle age has 40,000 of these crystals in that right-sized piece of the pineal gland. Now, a newborn baby is about 10,000. Somebody maybe in their 70s and 80s has about 60, 65,000. There's no evolutionary need for these crystals. They have nothing to do with melatonin production, but they create a electromechanical transduction effect. This is according to this research paper right here. I don't know if that's backwards to anybody or not in terms of the video, but it says new crystal in the pineal gland, characterization and potential role in mechanotransduction. This is where I stole the crystal photos from. These are a group of people who discovered that. And what this research paper is indicating is because crystals have the potential to conduct electricity. That's why they're in our watches, in our phones, in our electronic gear. I remember back in the day, back in the 70s, we had our quartz digital watches because there was a little quartz crystal in it. Because crystals, some forms of crystals can conduct electricity. They can, when mechanical pressure is applied, create electromagnetic field that's measurable. That's what happens in the brain. When mechanical pressure is applied through breathing techniques and swirling the cerebral fluid, electromagnetic field is created within the brain. If any Joe Dispenza fans out there, that breathing technique of his, pulling it in from the perineum up the spinal cord into your head, that's what he's doing. His book, Becoming Super Rational, there it is right there. That's my copy of it right there. Talks about the pineal gland and that breathing technique and accessing the power of the pineal gland. And what this means in terms of electromechanotransduction is that a transducer, back in the day anyway, I don't think this is the way it works anymore with streaming on TV, with the internet and all that. But back in the day, when you wanted to watch your TV show and you wanted to watch Cheers on Thursday night at 9 o'clock, you had to turn your TV on, turn it to the right channel, turn it to channel 10. And you get to watch your TV show. Well, at the same time, a TV studio in Los Angeles puts a big video cassette of that week's episode into their equipment. A transducer in that equipment takes the image and sound off that magnetic tape, turns it into a frequency, and shoots it into the airwaves through their radar dish. Well, if you live in a big city, not only do you have all these television stations, well, there's probably 4 or 5 back in the 70s and 80s, but you also had all these radio stations. Big city probably has 50 radio stations between talk radio, college radio, sports, all sorts of music from jazz to classical to hip hop to country to rock and roll, all sorts of music. Now, when you turn on your car radio, at least back in the day, when you turned on your car radio, you didn't hear 50 radio stations. It wasn't noise. You heard one radio station or some static until you found the right station you wanted to turn into, because that antenna on the hood of your car would start vibrating microscopically when you turned it into a certain radio station, and it would pull in that one frequency. So you listen to your radio station. You get tired of that radio station. You don't like the song. You're tired of the talk. The news is over. You turn it to another station. You pull in that one signal. You pull in that information into your radio. Your radio has a tiny little transducer in it, which turns that frequency into sound. Well, our television sets back in the day, many people remember this television set. You turn the TV on, you turn it to the right channel. These rabbit ears start vibrating microscopically, or your antenna on your house, but these antennas start vibrating microscopically to pull in that one signal of the TV station or the TV studio you want to pull in. And I turn on my TV at Thursday at 9 o'clock, channel 10, and it pulls in the TV show Cheers, the frequency. I have a transducer in my TV, and it changes that frequency back into image and sound. So I get to watch my TV show. That's what that research paper is suggesting our pineal gland is doing, is pulling in information, because we know consciousness is non-local. So we know information is not stored within the brain. Even this research paper here in Frontiers in Psychology came out in 2020, common basis of January 2020, and then all of a sudden, the world went into chaos and we forgot all about this research paper. Common basis of memory and consciousness, understanding the brain as a right read head, interacting with an omnipresent background field. What all that fancy language is saying is memory and consciousness is not held within the brain, but the brain is an antenna. And it's pulling information, this says, from the omnipresent background field, meaning the field, or that if you look at an atom, you keep going deeper and deeper in an atom past the neutrons and electrons and the subatomic particles and the quarks and all that, you keep going deeper and deeper into an atom. It's this vibrational field that binds the universe together. That's where this paper is suggesting we're pulling in this information from, this big, whether you want to call it the Akashic records or the big library of life, or whether, and there's people, of course, way smarter than me, arguing on whether this is a computer simulation, our reality here on Earth, or it's a holographic universe, or it's the multiverse, or something else. And again, that's why this can be a 10-hour conversation and still, not have all the answers, obviously. People are still discussing how reality within our consciousness seems to work. Well, what I do with my book, and I might as well just pitch real quick. Here's my book, Past Lives Guidebook, of course. But why I wrote this book, and why I like coming on to telesummits like this and other places to talk about this one, is because I enjoy the science of it. I was skeptical about it. I didn't understand it. I wanted to know more about it. It was through my curiosity and my skepticism about how this all worked that I started researching it and started putting things together. And all of a sudden, well, this seems like a book, and other people might be interested. So this isn't so much stories about past life regression, but more about the science, a lot of the stuff I was just talking about. And because I think when you get an understanding of how this potentially could all start working in terms of why we're here, how we can heal, how we can move our consciousness up into that soul state, get in touch with our higher selves or our soul, however you want to describe it, and create that healing, that deep healing, then I think we can move forward in whatever role we're playing here today and create that healing and create that transformation you're looking for that may be blocking you from moving forward. Now I'll take a breath.
You have so many questions in the comments.
I know. I'm so sorry. There's like a minute left. But I'd be happy, maybe at some point down the road we can just do like a big, huge, long something or other. But find me on the internet, Craig Meriwether, Sacred Mystery Hypnotherapy. Ask me your questions through email in the 30 seconds we have left, because I know there's so many great people on today still to come. Please find me through email or text, or happy to get on a Zoom call or something and discuss this and how it may specifically help you. Sorry, I can't get to everyone's questions, but I just see it on the thing. Thank you, Shantana. If you go to my website, Sacred Mystery Hypnotherapy, there's a recording and to help you connect with your spirit guide. You think that might be helpful for you, but yeah, thank you so much. It's talking a bit fast. I was starting to drop consonants at the end there, and but I appreciate everybody sticking with that. That was a lot of information to drop on your laps.
That was incredible. I do have the one question though.
Okay, one question.
Do you have the papers you reference listed on your website by any chance?
No, but I can send them to you if you want to put them up somewhere, maybe on Facebook or something.
Okay,
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, because I just have someone that's asking. They want.
Yeah, but one great thing, I know I'm running over here. One real quick, easy thing to do is go to Google, and in the Google search Google Scholar, put Google Scholar, and that will send you to a subsection of Google, scholar.google.com, and that only looks at research papers. So you can put in anything, hypnotherapy and anxiety, past life regression, and you'll get research papers about that topic or consciousness or something. Put it in there, you'll find it probably from there too.
Thank you. This
Yeah.
was
Okay.
incredible.